Good afternoon, Senator and other committees of committee members. I am here solely.
Why don't you introduce yourself first and tell us who you're with? And did you get a witness form?
I did.
Okay,
I did.
Go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, first and foremost, I'm Captain Kwashi, the St. Louis Recruiting Commander. Here I have with me my battalion commander, Lieutenant Colonel Jacoby, and my education specialist, Ms. Rita Hanks. Today we're just here to provide a snapshot as to how the U.S. Army recruiting is being affected by the public schools and their accreditation in my footprint. As we all know, the U.S. Army is required to actively recruit in our public schools. And today, and I'm just going to specifically talk about one region, I currently have about 5 stations that are spread out around the area of our operation. Today I'm only going to talk about one that has about 25 high schools in their area of operation, with 13 of those high schools being parochial. I am going to go ahead and have Lieutenant Colonel Jacoby present some remarks, and then I'm going to caviar on some specifics to the area right here in St. Louis.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon, and thank you for this opportunity to speak today. We as Army ambassadors are here to work in our communities in which we work in, we live in, and we send our children to school in, to help overcome the obstacles to military service faced by our youth today. The statistics I'm going to tell you about here are nationwide statistics, and Captain Kwashi is going to break you down some numbers that affect the local area. But currently, one scary fact is that less than 1 in 4 of our 17 to 24-year-olds are fully qualified to serve their country.
Say that one more time, a little bit more into this. I want to make sure we get it.
Currently, less than 1 in 4 of our 17 to 24-year-olds are fully qualified to serve their country. Now, there are 3 root causes for that. One of those 3 is education, and that's what we're here to speak of mainly today. I'll briefly mention the other 2. First is moral disqualification. We as leaders all have an overall responsibility to help raise our youth morally straight. Every time I get an opportunity to go talk to a group of youth, I mention the Army values as the way to follow to ensure that they're not morally disqualified. Those are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. I advise young students to take an extra second and think about their actions before they step forward, do something silly, violate one of those Army values, which are applicable in any venue, not just the military, so that they remain qualified when the time comes that they reach the age where they could serve their country. Second is our increased obesity rates across our nation. Now, that does have some educational aspect as well, but the facts are that currently 1 in 5 of our 12 to 19-year-olds are overweight. I'd like to compare that to a different era, which some of you may remember as the 1960s, in which 1 in 20 were overweight. It's quite a difference in not too many years. Now, the main reason, as I stated earlier, we're here is to talk about education and the impact on military recruiting. Another statistic nationwide is that 1 in 5 fail to graduate. That's important because for fiscal year 11, which just ended a couple months ago for us, 98.9% of our enlistees were high school diploma graduates. Our focus is on those students that graduate. Gone are the days where the military is looked at as a second option for those that fail out of the school system. It becomes more important as the other education aspect we're here to talk about is the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, the ASVAB test. To qualify for military service, a young person must score 30 or higher on that test. However, simply scoring a 30 or less than 50 puts a young person in a category in which they can find themselves closed out from the full spectrum of opportunities in the military. At this point in fiscal year 12, we have already closed out 15 military occupational specialties to those that score less than 50 on the ASVAB. And that's just in the Army. I'm not talking for the other services. Now, Captain Kwashi is going to follow up with some specifics on the ASVAB scores and the effect on recruiting in the local area, subject to your questions. Thank you for your time.
I'll hold off questions until all of you all have finished presenting. Also, the statistics that you all have in your presentation, is that available to the committee that you could either get to us or leave? Okay, thank you.
I can provide it. Again, as the Colonel mentioned, I am going to go into some specifics with what's currently affecting our area. I'm going to pull numbers from our school year 2010-2011. As we all know, we have a mission, and our mission is to recruit high schoolers and graduates. And when I say graduates, I'm talking about students that are currently enrolled in colleges or have already completed their high school and are seeking tertiary education. We have a mission somewhere between 36 to about 50 qualified seniors. And to a lot of you guys, it seems as if it's a small number. And when we say 35 to 50, we're talking about 35 to 50 qualified seniors that can score above 50% on our ASVAB testing. For the last 3 fiscal years, the St. Louis Recruiting Company has not been able to achieve its assigned senior mission in. To date, I am looking at numbers for 2010-2011, and I'm going to break it down by females. When we're looking at the SASVAB or ASVAB categories, we're looking at categories being 1, meaning that they're scoring above a 90. Category 2 and Category 3 Bravos are those that are scoring above a 50. For the females, we're looking at only 13 that were able to score above a 50. Combined, for those that actually able to pass the tests, we're looking at 43. So a majority of those females that actually take the test and pass the test, even with a low score, combined is 43. We're looking at graduates. Actually, before I go on to the graduates or the college students, I'm going to shift over to the males. For the males that are able to pass above a 50% on the ASVAB, we're looking at only 27. For those that are able to pass but below the 50 percentile, we're looking at 25. For a total of 52. That is a combined number of 95, and this is for 2010-2011. To date, we have tested 261 of those seniors, and of those that tested, like I mentioned, 30, 25, that's 55 that are now currently locked out because of the new enforcement of the 50 percentile and higher category MOSs that are still open. We're sitting here today because I have many recruiters that are in many of the schools that we have here in the city. And many of these high schoolers want to consider the U.S. Army as an option. As we all know, we sit before you because we made a decision to serve. And we have students out there among us that want to have that ability to serve their country. But it's sad when we have a valedictorian that we stood in the auditorium, see many of them walk across the stage, and she came up to test, and she only scored a 4. 4? A 4. I choose not to reveal the school or the name of that student at this time, but that's the type of, those are the students that we're seeing that's coming up to test. We have service members, we have family members, and we have applicants that really would love to consider the U.S. Army as an option. And why shouldn't they? The Army offers 150 different types of careers, and we use the aptitude test to assist these applicants to push them into the career field that they desire. But within the St. Louis area, many of these students do not have the ability because, as we all sitting here today and we're lobbying, the high schools that we are recruiting out of are not providing the quality leads that the U.S. Army is looking for. I have a quick excerpt that I want to share, and this is just from an article that was written by Katie Haycock, the Education Trust president. real quick, I would like to emphasize the findings that I explained or expressed to you earlier. I know they're troubling because they're ill-prepared academically. That's the students that I'm referring to. We no longer should look at the military as an option, and if you do not graduate from high school, the U.S. Army is an option. The U.S. Army is now shutting out, sadly enough, those high schoolers that are not able to qualify. As we all know, this is an educated Army, and just like many of the other professions, we're seeking those students that are qualified. Why should the students of St. Louis be any different from the students of any other area?
I think I'm going to cry. I don't even know what to say. Any questions? Do you all want to hear the testing service person first, or you want to go ahead? Let me go ahead.
Okay.
I think you've gotten to our hearts here.
Well, thank you for your testimony, both of you, this afternoon. And as a Navy veteran, I want to thank you for your service
Thank you.
to our country
Thank you.
and the sacrifice that you are giving for our freedoms.
It's my honor.
When I was serving during Vietnam, a lot of the men that came into my division had been given a choice by the judge, jail or the Navy.
Rogers.
And thankfully, this is not an option for our military today. You can be a lot more selective, and from what I've heard, you are being very selective, and that's a good thing.
We are.
It's a good thing. The sad thing is that a lot of our young people are not qualifying for the reasons that the Lieutenant Colonel mentioned. And I wanted to follow up on those statistics, because I think he said that only one out of four are qualifying now. Is what I heard based on the three issues that he mentioned: obesity, moral issues.
Roger, that's a national
and then the
assessment.
education. Is that 1 in 4 of the entire population of the country, or is it 1 in 4 of the numbers of the students who come to be tested in the recruiting stations?
I would have to say, honestly, it's 1 of 4 of those that actually test
They
or
actually
show
come in-
interest into the
Okay.
U.S. Army. sir.
They actually come in and because they want to get into the military for whatever reason.
Roger, sir. They
So-
show interest and they show up to a recruiter or recruiting station. Based off of the initial assessment, they may or may not qualify.
Okay, and the statistics,
Okay. I stand corrected. 17 to 24 nationwide.
nationwide, okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, the statistics that you gave that were in regards to the 25 to 30 high schools that you have, those were students who actually came in to be tested, who were in the schools and came in to be tested. That's
Yes,
correct.
sir. The numbers came from the 261 of the numbers that actually were tested with the ASVAB in my area, sir.
Okay. All right, so it's still a very low number, and a lot of the students don't qualify for a variety of reasons. What's the percentage who don't qualify for the moral reasons? I guess they were in trouble with the law, I guess.
Well, if we're looking at moral versus education,
Right.
that's the comparison you're looking for. Morally, we would have probably 3 of 10 that would not qualify morally,
Okay.
versus I would say 7 of 10 if I would group 10 when they take the ASVAB.
Okay, thank you. And one final question. Have you seen an increase in the interest in getting into the Army in the last 2 to 3 years because of the economic decline?
Well, I can't speak for the last 2 to 3 years. I've only been in my position for the last 12 months. And I do know that we do have a lot of interest. When I'm looking at the applicants that are coming into our stations within the last 5 to 6 months, we're now looking at college students that have a degree. We're looking at some that are very educated, some of them that just wanted an opportunity to get out of St. Louis. So the interest continues to grow. And as we all know, we are at a nation where there's a shortage in jobs, for the lack of better words. So the U.S. Army appeals to a lot of members out there.
Great. Again, thank you very much, and thank you for your service.
Thank you again, sir. Pending any further questions?
I'm sorry.
Any further
Oh,
questions?
any further questions? You're going to take my job in a minute.
I'm
Any
sorry.
further questions? I think you had your testing service person here too. If you'll come forward, then we'll see if we have any questions. And we do want those statistics. And I just want to make sure I got this right. And I want you to tell me later. You may not want to say it in public, but public schools are public information. And where that girl was a valedictorian and she scored 4, I want you to tell me later what high school that was. Okay?
Yes,
I want to
Madam-
know that.
Yes, Madam Senator. At
Yes,
this time,
ma'am.
I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Rita Hanks, my education specialist.
Good afternoon. My name's Rita Hanks. I'm with the United States Army Recruiting Battalion from Kansas City. The battalion represents the state of Missouri, half of Kansas, and a little bit of Illinois. Wanted to talk just briefly about the ASVAB, or the student ASVAB. Young people who are in our high schools can take a student ASVAB to determine career opportunities that they might want to choose. It is not a military exam. A lot of school districts believe that it is strictly a military entrance exam, but it is not. It is an aptitude battery. It is made up of 8 tests: general science, arithmetic, reasoning, word knowledge, paragraph comprehension, mathematics knowledge, electronics information, auto shop information, and mechanical comprehension. It is not an intelligence test. It is an aptitude battery, and it is designed for young people in high schools to be able to explore different career opportunities. The AFQT score, or the Armed Forces Qualifying Test Score, is a part of that ASVAB, and with weighting and totaling scores on these subtests, an AFQT score then is established. That AFQT score combines scores from these subtests, basically from the math knowledge, the arithmetic, reasoning, word knowledge, and paragraph comprehension. So the AFQT subscore is based on those 4 subtests in that student ASVAB. The Army then is able to determine potential to perform in a certain military occupational specialty, or an MOS. Captain Quashie mentioned some of the categories for enlistment, and she did talk about the Category 3 Alpha, which is the qualifying Army incentive program. So the higher the young person scores on the ASVAB, they're able to qualify for Army incentive programs, including the enlistment bonuses, the college repayment programs, and the Army College Fund. The Army is required to take 60% of their recruits from those scoring in that category. In times of great need, the Army can reach into the pool of those folks who are below that 3A category. And as Colonel Jacoby mentioned, and Captain Quashie, the qualifying scores, we're looking for those students who are 50 and above. So today's young people are being shut out of the military, not only in our state, but across the country, because of their inability to score above that 50 on the AFQT part of that ASVAB. There was a national study conducted by Education Trust, which what I understand is an educational lobbying group out of Washington, D.C., and they conducted a 5-year study, and they took a look at, for the years 2004 to 2009, they did a sampling of 350,000 high school graduates between the age of 17 and 20. And that sampling then, they took a look at the ASVAB scores for those young people who enlisted in the Army. Out of the 350,000 that were sampled, 172,000 joined the Army. 23% of those people who applied to join the Army were not able to meet the minimum requirements to get into the Army. So the ineligibility rates in our area, 21.8% of the young people in Missouri are not able to meet the minimum requirements. That's the 1 in 5%, basically. In the St. Louis district area, St. Louis Public School District area, it's higher than that. Of the schools in particular that we were asked to talk about, the St. Louis Public High Schools, there are 13 public high schools, and they are in one of the stations, the recruiting stations that Captain Quashie has in her area. Of those 13 schools, not all of them do conduct the student ASVAB in their schools. It is a voluntary situation, and not all of them do what we call a mandatory student ASVAB. They will conduct a voluntary student ASVAB. So out of the 13 public high schools in the area, only 6 of them do conduct a voluntary ASVAB in their schools. Of those schools, the average AFQT score is 24. They are denied entrance then into the military because they are not able to score. Of the 6 high schools in one station that does conduct a voluntary ASVAB, student ASVAB in their schools, the average AFQT score is 24. They're locked out of today's military.
Any questions of this witness? This is new stuff. I really appreciate you coming. I had no idea, so thank you for this.
Thank you for coming. I just wanted a clarification on that last bit of data you provided to us.
Sure.
You said that 6 of the 13 schools do the testing, so the other 7 don't do any testing?
They choose not to,
Okay,
yes, sir.
so could students from those other schools come to the other 6 schools and take the test, or is it just strictly the students in those 6 schools?
It would be just in those schools who conduct the
Students in those
test.
6 schools.
Right.
And the average score of 24, I think I heard you, Captain, say earlier that the 30 was the minimum. You had to have
31.
at least a 31, I guess,
That
to
is the
even have
minimum.
a chance to get into the military,
Correct.
into the Army. So the average score being 24 means that most of the kids probably didn't even qualify to get in.
Correct.
So, all right, thank you very much.
Hi, thank you for being here today.
You're welcome.
Couple questions. One, what are the numbers for our county schools? Do you have that information?
I didn't pull that. We were just asked to speak to the St. Louis.
The other point I would like to make, though, and I don't remember off the top of my head, but I do know that our special ed population numbers in the city are much higher than the average around the suburban areas. And I know as a special ed teacher, a lot of my students look to the military and they struggle with the ASVAB, obviously. So I would just make note, if you made it, or have you made note of how many of those students that qualifying have diagnosed special education diagnoses that are taking your test?
I do not have those statistics available.
Are there accommodations made for those students that take the test? Can they have the test read to them? Can they have
There are some accommodations.
Okay,
yes,
thank you.
that can be made.
Thank you also for
You're
your
welcome.
testimony, and to the Colonel and the Captain as well for your service to this nation and really to the entire free world. But what I wanted to kind of is just go over again as an observation of my own, having also landed in my 30 years of working for a military contractor, the job that actually pays my bills. You have to have a higher level of intelligence to deal with mission capability today, more so than you did 30, 40, 50 years ago, even 10 years ago. If you think that the Tom Clancy novels were some major breakthrough in the 80s of what we learned about our Navy, it is unbelievable what is in the field today and the level of intelligence required to operate a lot of this equipment, not only defensively, but offensively. So not that this committee needed any more pressure added to it, but what you're hearing here today is how the educational, or the lack of quality education in areas where we normally would pool a lot of our resources going into the Army, we are affecting what is truly a crisis in national defense. So I just wanted to make sure, and I'm sure all of you got it, but just in case somebody didn't, that whole new dynamic has just been added to what we're discussing here. So again, I want to thank you for your testimony,
Yes,
but
sir.
also to let you know that I kind of almost feel your pain in a way, because I have to deal with that technology and development. So thank you.
She got it answered. Make sure your forms are filled out.
Sure.
Thank you all for taking